Babylon wasn't just bricks and towers, it was the city that terrified the church. Its ruins whispered of forbidden gods, fallen angels, and a kingdom that defied heaven itself. It was destroyed twice, first by Persian armies, then by scholars who rewrote its legacy. The Tower of Babel, a tale of sin and scattering, wasn't history, it was propaganda. The real Babylon proved humanity could reach divine heights without permission. And that's exactly why its true story had to be buried. While Europe remained scattered tribes hunting in forests, Babylon ruled an empire stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, around 600 BC, this wasn't just a city, it was the beating heart of human civilization. But how does a civilization achieve such heights that it threatens religious authority centuries later? The Hanging Gardens rose in terraced splendor, defying the desert with flowing water and exotic plants from distant lands. The Code of Hammurabi established humanity's first comprehensive legal system, predating Moses by centuries, with 282 laws covering everything from property disputes to medical malpractice. Babylonian astronomers calculated eclipses with mathematical precision that wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years. This was a metropolis that dwarfed anything the ancient world had seen. The Tower of Babel was real, and it was magnificent. The Etemenanke ziggurats soared nearly 300 feet into the Mesopotamian sky, its 7 levels representing the cosmic order itself. Cuneiform tablets describe its construction in meticulous detail. The precise measurements, the imported cedar beams, and the golden capstone that caught the first rays of dawn. According to Genesis, God scattered humanity because they dared to build a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. However, what if the real crime wasn't architectural ambition, but the dangerous idea that humans could unite without divine oversight? This is where Babylon became more than a city. It became a rival Eden. The Bible tells us Adam and Eve's paradise was lost because of disobedience. Atlantis, in Plato's account, fell because of human pride. And now, Babylon was condemned for daring to unite in knowledge and strength. 3 stories of paradise, 3 warnings, but all carrying the same message, that human achievement without divine permission is the greatest threat to heaven's order. Early Christian writers faced an uncomfortable problem. Babylon's achievements were undeniable, documented in their own records and confirmed by Persian, Greek, and Roman historians. Yet these accomplishments contradicted a fundamental doctrine: that only through God could humanity achieve true greatness. How do you condemn a civilization that clearly succeeded without divine guidance? The solution was theological alchemy. Augustine transformed Babylon from a center of learning into a symbol of corruption. Jerome turned its prosperity into decadence, its knowledge into witchcraft, its independence into rebellion against divine order. The message became doctrine: seek wisdom without divine permission and face divine wrath. Even the archaeology itself became dangerous. The Ishtar Gate, with its dazzling blue-glazed bricks and golden lions, once welcomed visitors into the city like a threshold to another world. When German archaeologists unearthed it in the 20th century and rebuilt it in Berlin's Pergamon Museum, they exposed the lie that Babylon was merely dust and rubble. It was beauty, order, and brilliance. Likewise, the Hanging Gardens, long dismissed as myth, may have been misattributed to Nineveh, meaning one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, still hides its roots in Mesopotamian soil. Each discovery makes Babylon look less like a cautionary tale and more like the blueprint of a paradise the church wanted forgotten. What made Babylon's religion so threatening that the church would spend centuries denouncing it? Because Babylon's deities represented something that challenged Christianity's very foundation: the idea that knowledge came from sources other than the one true God. Marduk, the king of gods who defeated primordial chaos through wisdom rather than brute force. Ishtar, goddess of love and war, who descended into the underworld and returned with forbidden secrets about life, death, and rebirth. Tiamat, the dragon of primordial waters, from whose conquered body the world itself was created. These weren't just pagan idols, They embodied entire cosmologies that predated Genesis and offered alternative explanations for existence itself. The most dangerous secret was the Apkallu, 7 semi-divine sages who, according to Babylonian creation myths, brought civilization to humanity before the Great Flood. These beings emerged from the cosmic waters to teach writing, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and the arts of governance to early humans. Oans rose from the sea to gift humanity language and law. Uana brought agriculture and architecture. Enmeduga revealed the secrets of metalworking and healing. Does this sound familiar? These teachers bear striking resemblance to the Watchers described in the Book of Enoch, angels who descended to earth and shared divine knowledge with humans, eventually creating the Nephilim giants. But here's the crucial difference that terrified the church. In Babylonian texts, the Apkallu were heroes, bringers of light and civilization. In Christian interpretation, such beings became demons who corrupted humanity's innocent relationship with God. The Babylonians believed something revolutionary, that knowledge itself was salvation. Not faith, not divine grace, not submission to higher powers, but knowledge. Their texts proclaimed that understanding the movements of stars, the properties of herbs, and the principles of justice and mathematics could elevate humans to divine status. The Epic of Gilgamesh tells of a king who sought immortality through wisdom rather than worship. The Enuma Elish describes creation as an act of cosmic knowledge, with Marduk defeating chaos through understanding rather than divine command. And at the center of it all stood Ishtar. To Babylonians, she was the queen of heaven, embodiment of both creation and destruction, the balance of life and death. To the church, this was intolerable. A goddess who offered direct access to divinity threatened their carefully guarded male hierarchy. Thus, Ishtar was rebranded as the whore of Babylon in Revelation, her temples reframed as dens of corruption, her mysteries rewritten as abominations. What was once reverence for the divine feminine became a symbol of sin. Even Babylonian astronomy and medicine, the lifeblood of their civilization, were twisted into sorcery and witchcraft. The church took their star charts, which had accurately predicted eclipses for centuries, and condemned them as astrology. Their herbal medicine, tested and refined over generations, was denounced as pagan spellcraft. By rebranding advanced science as dangerous superstition, the church erased Babylon's reputation as a civilization of knowledge and painted it instead as a kingdom of demons. This was heresy of the highest order to a church that preached salvation only through Christ. So the church methodically rebranded Babylon's heritage. The Apkallu became demons. Astronomical knowledge became astrology and witchcraft. Medical practices became sorcery. The great libraries of Babylon, repositories of thousands of years of accumulated human wisdom, were reframed as centers of dark magic that threatened the souls of the faithful. If you're discovering how deep this conspiracy goes, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the church's cover-up of ancient knowledge is just getting started. When Christianity rose to power, Babylon had already been in ruins for centuries. Yet church leaders obsessed over condemning this ancient civilization. Why expend such energy attacking something already gone? Because Babylon represented religious authority's greatest nightmare. Proof that humans could achieve unprecedented greatness without submitting to monotheistic control. For over a millennium, this polytheistic city had produced advances in law, science, literature, and governance that Christian Europe couldn't replicate for another 1,000 years. If pagans could build such a civilization, what did that say about Christianity's claims to exclusive truth? Then came the archaeological revelation of the 19th century. Excavations at Babylon revealed something that completely shattered the church's narrative. This wasn't the corrupt, sinful city of biblical condemnation. Hammurabi's code, carved in stone around 1750 BC, contained sophisticated legal principles that wouldn't appear in European law until the Enlightenment. Babylonian medicine included surgical procedures, pharmaceutical knowledge, and diagnostic techniques that surpassed anything in medieval Christian Europe. Their astronomical calculations predicted celestial events with mathematical precision that scholars couldn't achieve until they rediscovered these ancient Babylonian methods. Even their architecture told a forbidden story. The Ishtar Gate, reconstructed from dazzling blue-glazed bricks, bore lions, bulls, and dragons, symbols of divine authority that once welcomed visitors into a city unlike any other. Imagine medieval Christians seeing this gate, realizing that a so-called pagan city had mastered beauty and engineering on a scale rivaling anything Europe would produce until the Renaissance. The Hanging Gardens, though still debated by scholars, were said to be a technological marvel of irrigation and design, a living paradise created by human hands. If true, they would have been the world's first artificial Eden, a direct rival to the biblical garden. And the discoveries didn't stop there. Thousands of cuneiform tablets unearthed from Babylon's ruins revealed detailed mathematical systems, medical recipes, and even the world's oldest literature. These weren't the scribblings of idolaters, they were blueprints of a civilization that thrived through reason and record-keeping. Every tablet translated was another blow to the Church's claim that wisdom flowed only from Jerusalem. The evidence was overwhelming and doctrinally devastating. Human knowledge hadn't begun with divine revelation to the Hebrews. It had ancient independent roots in Mesopotamian civilization. Even worse, these achievements came from a culture that explicitly rejected monotheism in favor of multiple sources of wisdom and knowledge. But how do you suppress archaeological evidence? The Church's response was calculated and comprehensive. Babylon's contributions to human knowledge were either ignored in religious education, minimized in historical accounts, or dismissed as demonic influence when acknowledgement was unavoidable. Church scholars claimed that any genuine wisdom in Babylonian texts must have derived from corrupted memories of divine revelation to Adam or Noah. The possibility that humans had developed advanced knowledge independently was doctrinally impossible and historically buried. The smear campaign extended into prophecy itself. The Book of Revelation casts Mystery Babylon as the ultimate symbol of evil, a world system doomed to destruction. But was this prophecy a vision of the future, or was it deliberately shaped to permanently brand Babylon's name as synonymous with corruption? By turning the city into an apocalyptic villain, the Church ensured no believer could ever admire its accomplishments without feeling they were flirting with heresy. This wasn't just about protecting doctrine, it was about controlling the very narrative of human progress. The Church needed people to believe that pride led to destruction, that seeking wisdom independently brought divine punishment, and that only through submission could humanity thrive. Babylon had to remain a cautionary tale rather than an inspiring example of human potential unleashed. For over 1,000 years, the Church succeeded. Babylonian texts remained untranslated in monastic archives. Archaeological discoveries were interpreted through biblical frameworks that minimized their significance. The achievements of Mesopotamian civilization were either credited to divine inspiration or dismissed as satanic deception. The message remained clear: true knowledge came from God alone, and those who sought it elsewhere faced eternal damnation. The story of the Tower of Babel is one of the most famous in the Bible, humanity uniting to build a tower so high it would reach heaven itself. God descends, scatters the people, confuses their languages, and the project collapses. For centuries, it's been taught as a cautionary tale against pride. But what if that's not the whole truth? The Etemenanki, the real Babylonian tower, wasn't just a pile of bricks. It was a symbolic recreation of the cosmos itself, its 7 levels mirroring the 7 heavens. At its peak, priests could observe the stars with mathematical precision, turning the ziggurat into a celestial observatory as much as a temple. To Babylon's people, this wasn't arrogance, it was connection. They were bridging earth and sky, uniting humanity in pursuit of knowledge. But here's the dangerous parallel. This was Babylon's Eden. If Genesis told the story of paradise lost through disobedience, Babel told the story of paradise lost through achievement. 2 rival parables with 2 completely different lessons. One teaching that we must obey God, the other whispering that humanity could reach heaven without him. Notice how similar this is to the Atlantis myth. In both cases, humans unite to build paradise, and in both cases, their success is met with destruction. Atlantis drowned beneath the waves, Babel scattered to the winds. Different cultures, different stories, but the same message encoded by later religious authorities. Don't try to build heaven on your own. For the church, this wasn't about architecture. It was about ideology. If the tower had stood as proof that humans could unite, share knowledge, and climb toward heaven together, it would have destroyed the theological foundation of Eden. So the story was twisted. Pride became the sin, scattering became punishment, and Babylon's greatest symbol of unity was rebranded as humanity's most infamous rebellion. The ruins of Babel still rise from the Mesopotamian dust, but its true story was buried long ago, not because it failed, but because it succeeded, and that success was too dangerous to remember. No figure embodied Babylon's forbidden power more than Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and resurrection. She was worshipped as Queen of Heaven, commanding both fertility and destruction, celebrated in hymns that described her as the star of Venus, blazing in the dawn sky. In Babylonian myth, she descended into the underworld to rescue her lover, dying and rising again, in a cycle that predated Christianity's resurrection story by centuries. To the Babylonians, she was not a threat, but the guarantor of life itself. But to the patriarchal monotheisms that followed, she was intolerable. The Hebrew prophets thundered against the Queen of Heaven, condemning women who baked cakes in her honor. Early Christians inherited this hostility, erasing goddess worship and recasting female divinity as demonic seduction. Ishtar's temples were systematically destroyed, her rites demonized as witchcraft, her symbols absorbed and sanitized. The star of Venus became associated with fallen angels. Her descent into the underworld was buried until fragments resurfaced in cuneiform tablets. Yet echoes of her persisted, in Mary elevated as the Queen of Heaven, in saints who carried her symbols, and in whispered traditions that refused to let her die. What terrified the church was not just Ishtar herself, but what she represented. A vision of the divine where women held equal spiritual authority, where sexuality was sacred rather than sinful, where rebirth came not through obedience but through cosmic cycles. To admit Babylon's goddess had been real was to admit Christianity's monopoly on resurrection, salvation, and divine feminine power was false. If uncovering the buried truth of Ishtar has you questioning what else the church erased, now's the time to subscribe and hit the bell, because the next revelations will make Babylon's forbidden legacy even harder to ignore. Centuries after Babylon's bricks had crumbled into desert dust, its ghost returned. In the final book of the Bible, Revelation doesn't just mention Babylon, it makes the ruined city the central symbol of end-times corruption. John's vision speaks of Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, a city drunk on the blood of saints, clothed in scarlet and gold, holding a golden cup of abominations. But what exactly was he describing? Was it literal Babylon or something far more dangerous, an eternal archetype of forbidden power? For early Christians, Babylon became code. When they lived under Roman rule, to speak openly of the empire's cruelty meant death. So they borrowed the image of Babylon as a veil, a powerful city that ruled nations, persecuted the faithful, and seduced the world with wealth. Rome was Babylon. Later, Protestant reformers would call the Vatican itself Babylon, accusing the Church of being the harlot seated on 7 hills. But the deeper question is this: why Babylon? Why not Egypt, or Greece, or Persia? Because Babylon had always been the rival. Its gods, its knowledge, its independent pursuit of paradise represented the exact opposite of the biblical Eden. To Revelation's author, Babylon was not just a city, but the idea that humanity could rise without God. And that idea had to be destroyed in fire. Archaeologists later uncovered the Ishtar Gate, dazzling blue and gold, once the ceremonial entrance to Babylon. Its lions and dragons still snarl across its glazed tiles. To the ancients, this gate was majesty. To the church, it was proof of abomination. Even today, many see Revelation's Babylon not just as Rome or the Vatican, but as a prophecy of a coming global empire that carries Babylon's spirit, a union of wealth, power, and forbidden knowledge. Babylon became eternal, a warning and a prophecy, a name used to condemn any power that threatened the church's control. But the irony is chilling. In trying to bury Babylon, they made it immortal. Babylon wasn't the only city whose legacy the church worked to bury. Once you begin looking, you see a disturbing pattern. Entire civilizations reduced to cautionary tales, their brilliance rewritten as sin, their ruins left to rot so that only one story, Eden's story, could dominate. Take Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. In the Bible, it appears only as the wicked city Jonah reluctantly preached to. Yet when archaeologists finally unearthed Nineveh in the 19th century, they discovered a metropolis of libraries, art, and astronomical records. The Library of Ashurbanipal alone contained over 30,000 cuneiform tablets, preserving scientific knowledge, star charts, and flood epics that paralleled Noah's story. But in Christian teaching, Nineveh was remembered only for repentance, not for knowledge. Then there's Abraham's birthplace. Scripture reduces it to a pagan city God called Abraham out of. Yet excavations revealed advanced ziggurats, intricate jewelry, and one of the world's earliest writing systems. Wasn't just a random city, it was a powerhouse of knowledge and culture, but its memory had to be overshadowed by biblical narrative. Even Eridu, considered by the Sumerians the world's very first city, was erased from the conversation. According to their texts, Eridu was the seat of the god Enki, bringer of knowledge and order, who ruled long before the biblical timeline even begins. Could Eridu have been the true first city, the seed of every myth that followed? Why would the church want these legacies forgotten? Because each one carried the same forbidden message as Babylon. Humanity had already achieved greatness, order, and wisdom long before divine revelation to Israel. These cities proved that civilization's foundations weren't biblical. They were Mesopotamian, and they were older than Genesis dared to admit. By rewriting them all as sinful, corrupt, or irrelevant, the church ensured the faithful never asked the most dangerous question. If humanity could build such wonders once, what else have we forgotten? Babylon didn't just fall to Persian armies, it was buried under centuries of deliberate propaganda, rewritten from a center of learning into a symbol of divine wrath, erased from the story of human achievement. Because if Babylon's full legacy survived in the historical record, it might prove that humanity has always been capable of reaching toward the heavens without waiting for divine permission. Its towers rivaled Eden, its wisdom rivaled Jerusalem, and its memory lingered so powerfully that Revelation itself resurrected it as Mystery Babylon, the ultimate symbol of defiance against divine control. The church needed it to remain a cautionary tale, not an inspiration, because its survival meant humans could reclaim the forbidden knowledge buried in its ruins. The ruins of Babylon still rise from the Iraqi desert, the Ishtar Gate preserved in museums, cuneiform tablets scattered across archives, whispering a truth that was never truly lost. They stand as a reminder that humans can build towers that scrape the sky, civilizations that defy limits, and knowledge that endures even the fiercest campaigns of suppression. The real question is this: was Babylon destroyed because it was wicked, or because it was dangerous to those who wanted to control the narrative of human destiny? Do you think the church was hiding Babylon's true legacy to protect their monopoly on truth? Or was it really just a city of sin that deserved to fall? Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. And if these forbidden histories intrigue you, subscribe to Ancient Underworld and turn on notifications for more videos that uncover the secrets they don't want you to know.